Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever time it is at your place right now while you're watching this video. This is CloudChartist with your weekly Ichimoku wrap-up for the week ending October 14th. It's Sunday night, October 16th. We got a big old full moon going on right now. I know I couldn't get a lot of sleep last night, but just gotta roll with these things, you know. So you might notice that the chart that we're looking at right now is actually not a weekly chart. It is a monthly chart, and it happens to be the chart for crude. So if you are a crude oil trader and you watch my videos just for that crude video content, you'll be happy because you can get it out of the way quickly and you can be done in like 5 minutes or less. You don't have to go searching around for the crude video, and I'm actually remembering it this time. So the reason that I put up the monthly is I just wanted to draw some fibs. And the way that I draw fibs is I do not generally include tails. So I draw the fibs from the candle high. So this candle high is $140, and that was back in 2008. And then we have a low candle close over here at 33.74. The reason that I drew these fibs on the monthly time frame is to show you that this 13.3% fib on the monthly from these recent highs, semi-recent, 8 years ago, pretty recent, are holding it right along this line very clearly. Many monthly candles closed and opened right around this area. You'll notice that we came up and we got up to the 23.6% fib by the way that I draw fibs. Maybe not by the way that fibs are normally drawn, but you know, my fibs are not that different from normal fibs a lot of the times, and the reason for that is that you'll see that this topping tail here is about a $7 topping tail. This bottoming tail here is about bit more than $7. Let's see, the low was 26 and I drew mine from 33. So basically what I'm getting at is that usually the topping tails and the bottoming tails are sort of equidistant, so they sort of put the fibs in a similar location, maybe slightly different. And sometimes I draw both just to use, then I have like two sets of fibs to work with. Anyway, so we're just sort of cruising along on this 13.3% fib. So if we do get a move to the upside, which I do expect that we will get, and I'll show you why, I would expect that 58.82 thereabouts would be the next area of resistance on the monthly time frame. We also can note that on the monthly time frame, crude is still bearish. It's still under the cloud. It has retaken the Tenkan-sen, so that is you know, better than not completely bearish, but overall it's still bearish because price is still under the cloud. So we also have the Kijun-sen above, slightly above that fib level, that 58.82 level. We have the Kijun-sen up here at 60.98, so around $61 is where the Kijun-sen, which would be the next area of resistance on the monthly time frame if you are a bull for crude for the, you know, on the monthly time frame. Let's switch to the weekly time frame, which after all is what this video is all about. I'm going to actually get rid of these fibs. Oops, sorry. Boom. So on the weekly time frame, we see that crude is still bullish. We do have a couple of we have candles that are getting smaller, so the momentum to the upside has been slowing over the last couple of weeks. We did have a bit of a topping tail that suggested we could have a potential reversal to the downside, but that did not occur. So we are still in a solid uptrend. Let me zoom in even a little bit more. Still have a solid uptrend for crude. If we do get a pullback, however, we do have the Tenkan-sen to offer us support. That's down currently at 47.30. It probably will actually open a bit higher, but currently it's at 47.30. So once the new candle opens up, we can see where the Tenkan-sen and where the support will be. I wouldn't be surprised if it was sort of at around this $48 level. And as far as resistance to the upside on the weekly time frame, let me zoom out a little back again. little back. We don't have any obvious resistance to the upside on the weekly time frame, except for where the cheek out comes into the cloud, and that's like way up here around 60. 60.36, 60.32 actually is this exact number. As far as the nature of the cloud on the weekly time frame, you see that, oh, let me zoom back out, it's easier to see. You see that the cloud in the future is pretty flat all the way into the beginning of next year, all the way into April of next year. We do have a twist in the cloud also. So if crude can't really get going to the upside, and in fact loses the Tenkan-sen and continues along the top of the cloud here for a while, we could get a drop through the cloud right at this twist. Right here. Boom. That's going to occur the week of 12/19. So Christmas week, basically, I think, or thereabouts. So if crude does lose the Tenkan-sen at some point and continue to chop around the $44, $45 level, then this is a precarious area for crude coming into the future. Just wanted to point that out. But overall, crude is still bullish, and I've been talking about this for a while. There's obviously a head and shoulders, inverse head and shoulders type bottoming pattern forming here. So if we do get going like above what I would consider the neckline to be, you know, basically where we've been finding resistance around this 51.75 area, if we get going above that, and I've been saying this week after week, but if we do get going above that, I would not be surprised to see us fill this gap right here, and that gap is to 56.50. This is what this gap looks like. So the beginning of the gap would be at the open of this candle, which is 54.90. So the first resistance would be 54.90 if we do continue moving to the upside, and then the gap fill would be up here at 56.50. Is that right? Yeah, 56.50. So keep those numbers in mind too for crude if we do get some rippage to the upside. I'm sure that there are still, even though it was a while ago that crude was trading up in this range, I'm sure there are still some people short and in this general vicinity that are, you know, have just been chilling out holding their shorts. I'm going to guess. I actually haven't looked at the COT data lately. I should probably do that. Anyway, so that's it for crude. Let's move along to the ES. So ES had a pretty interesting day on Friday. Things were looking quite up, and actually we traded back. I think we traded back above. Let me just look at Friday for a sec. So on Friday we traded back above the Tenkan-sen and the Kijun-sen on the daily, and it looked like we were potentially going to maybe get back into this triangle area. But then we got a lot of selling at the end of the day and closed not too far from the lows. So that's not really particularly bullish at all. But we did get a trend change to the upside on the daily. We do see that on Friday we put in a higher high and a higher low. So there is a confirmed trend change. The only thing that's not too good about that is that we have a really tiny candle body and that we ended up closing near the lows. So that is not super bullish. So technically a reversal to the upside, but not looking so bullish. Back to the weekly. So we lost this triangle pattern that we had been drawing, or I had been drawing on. I think I had drawn those trend lines on daily time frames, so they might look funny here on the weekly. And but we did hold this line, which was based on a different time frame. I think that was based on the daily also. But so on the weekly time frame, it looks like, so last week's candle put in a high of 21.64, or 2 weeks ago's candle, and this week's candle, or last week's candle, put in a high of 21.63.50. So 2 ticks below the high. So we do have a new downtrend on the weekly time frame. Obviously, very much a lower low. But overall, this chart is still bullish as it's above the cloud. But we have lost the Tenkan-sen for the time being. So we're looking at a potential range between the Tenkan-sen at 2145.88, and the Kijun Sen down here at 2086.50. Although we do seem to be respecting this gap level so far, we respected it on this candle. So if we do continue selling, I wouldn't be surprised for a potential bounce zone to be around these candle bodies right here at around 2115, and then the top of this cloud here at 2099. So you could say 2100. I would expect for a potential bounce there. If we don't bounce at 2100, if we see more selling, then we can look for the target of the 2086.50 of the Kijun Sen. One little Ichimoku note. I consider the Tenkan Sen to be stronger than the Kijun Sen, so blue stronger than pink on my charts anyway. And so the Kijun Sen is not as great support as the Tenkan Sen. Just wanted to throw that out there. All right, let's move along to the Russell, which was really what was the weak part on Friday. So the Russell, very bearish candle. I think it actually did put in a higher, let's see, the high of 2 weeks ago was 1252.30 and last week was 1253. So it did put in a higher high. So it's technically an outside candle, but the downtrend is in effect from the prior candle. So downtrend continues on the Russell. I would expect that if we do get continued selling, that we will find support when the Chikou, this red line over here representing price action, time shifted 26 periods into the past, so 26 weeks into the past in this case, will come into support of the cloud at 1181.90. So we could find support there. And then we have support at the Kijun Sen below at 1170.10. We do have a nice rising cloud coming up for the Russell, but that is not until next year. So until then, we have this flat cloud that could attract price lower, as in Ichimoku, flats attract price. Let's move on to the NASDAQ. It's also earnings season right now, so we do have, Apple earnings coming up. Actually, let's see. Apple earnings are in 2 weeks. I believe they're on the 25th, so not this week, but we have a lot of earnings that can cause, are going to influence price as well. So looking at the NASDAQ, we see that we are fully bullish in Ichimoku terms, and last week's candle, despite bearish activity, did manage to hold the Tenkan Sen, find support at the Tenkan Sen and bounce. So that's kind of important. So if we do find more selling, the NASDAQ support will be located at 4763.38 or wherever the Tenkan Sen opens up. Could actually, if you can notice that, let me zoom in a little bit, it might make it easier. Tenkan Sen is actually tipping up here, just a slight bit, but because of this bearish candle, it could go flat again. I would expect it to go flat again, so it might be back at 4758.75 rather than 4763.88. So could flatten out again. It could even point downwards because of the momentum of this bearishness compared to the last few candles. And this is technically, since this is an outside candle and we did have an existing uptrend, trend has not changed. That's about all I have to say on the NASDAQ. Let's look at some metals. Saw some strange metals action at various times during the day on last week. So, of course, you realize that we had the FOMC minutes last week, which caused a big rally that got completely sold. Then Yellen had some, we've had some Fed speakers and some Yellen speaking on Friday. I don't actually know what went down. I didn't really hear what she happened to say on Friday, but the market didn't like it, whatever it was. But gold is put in a doji candle last week. So potential reversal to the upside for gold. Reversal would need to be confirmed by a higher high and a higher low. Still an inside candle from the prior week, but very small range for gold. If we do find buyers and get a move to the upside, we can look for potential resistance at 1289.50. We can also make note that the Chikou is finding support at not only this candle here and also the Tenkan Sen. So if we do actually find more selling, we can expect the Tenkan Sen at 1245.20 to be a potential buy point. So if you are looking to get long on a dip on crude, I would recommend that 12:45.20 on the weekly time frame. We do have flat Kijun-sen, a flat Tenkan-sen ahead. Remember what I said about flats attracting in Ichimoku, so price action could be attracted back upwards towards the flat. But in the coming weeks, getting into the end of October and the beginning of November, we do have a flat down here as well in the cloud to keep an eye on. If there's competing flats in Ichimoku, then it's usually the one that the price action is closer to that's going to be more attractive. So currently, this flat up here is closer to price than this flat down here. Although, the clouds down here currently is going to be here for next week. So that's about it. Let's look at silver. Silver, put in a similar chart to gold. These fibs are not based on the weekly time frame, but they've been working pretty nicely. I think they're based on the daily time frame. So we put in a potential, a doji potential trend change to the upside. Sorry. That's my mom calling. I'm going to pause for 1 second and come back. Okay, I'm back. Let's see. So I would expect there could be a potential trend change to the upside. If we do get a trend change to the upside, we can see potentially resistance at the 50% fib, even though it's not based on this time frame. I'm telling you, it could be resistance. It was resistance here, and that's at 1833. And then we have the Kijun-sen that could offer resistance as well. It's currently at 1852, so 1852, 1853. That could offer resistance as well. We see that the pink line here, the Kijun-sen, is coming up and the Tenkan-sen is pointing down, so there is a potential for a bear cross. Overall, this chart is bullish in Ichimoku terms, but the fact that price is underneath the Tenkan-sen and the Kijun-sen is not particularly bullish. If we look at the Chikou, we see that the Chikou is going to have resistance, is going to have support either at the anywhere in between this tail here, but all the way down to the candle close at 16,985. So that's another potential bounce level, which is also around this fib at 1709. So, and which is where this prior 2 weeks ago candle bounced at. Jeez. That was actually that was at 1711. All right. I'm sorry, I'm kind of long-winded today. All right, this is ZB, the 30-year Treasury bonds. We see that we came down and tested the cloud. Not quite maybe all the way down to the cloud, but pretty close to the bottom of the cloud. The cloud was actually at 159.02 when we put in a low of 163. Wow. So we actually 4 points above the cloud is where we put in a bounce, but we closed pretty close to the lows. So we could actually come down and test the top of the cloud this week, which is 159.02. So I wouldn't be surprised to see more selling until we get down to the cloud, and then maybe potentially get a bounce. If we look at the Chikou, we see that the Chikou doesn't really have any support here until it gets to the Kijun-sen. That's all the way down here at 161.03 thereabouts, which is sort of midway through the cloud. But I think that it's probably likely that we will try to hold the cloud. We do have a nice rising cloud support. The reason I say that is we have been holding the cloud. If I scroll out, besides moving into the cloud for this area here, back in the end of last year, we've been bullish and above the cloud on the ZB for quite a while. So if you're a long-term treasury bull, this flat area in the cloud, if we do hold it, would probably be a good buy spot for you. Let's look at the 10-year. The 10-year, we did come down and test. Let's see, the low was 129, 170, and the top of the cloud is 128.24, so not too far. We did bounce not too far off the top of the cloud here. This week, if we do find more selling, there's a decent size bottoming tail on the 10-year here on the weekly. If we do find more selling, we could come down and test the top of the cloud at 128.24, so keep that level in mind if you're trading the 10-year. If we do get a move to the upside, there's plenty of resistance levels that we could possibly pause at, like 130.11 thereabouts, maybe even a little bit lower, maybe even 130 bottom. Let's see what the bottom of this candle is. That's 130.09. Tops of these, 130.23. And then the Tenkan-sen up here, 131.035, should definitely act as resistance if we do find buyers to get up to that level. You can see that's also the top of this consolidation zone, which I've marked with this rectangle, which simply is the reason that I marked it over here rather than here is it's just easier to see where the Chikou delineated it. It's just a little bit more difficult to see in this area with so much candle chaos. That's one thing that's really useful about the Chikou. A lot of people ask me, what, do I remove the Chikou from my charts? What does the Chikou do? Who cares about the Chikou? The Chikou is so valuable. Like, I can't even imagine using Ichimoku charts without the Chikou, because look how nicely it has stayed in this rectangle zone. I mean, that's beautiful. And the Chikou reversal points occur sort of like the same way I draw my fibs at candle closes and real candle bodies. So that's another reason that I really like it. All right, what else? Let's look at the dollar, because the dollar's been a beast. Crazy, beastly last week. Got after closing last week under the cloud, still in bearish territory on the weekly. We saw that the dollar put in a huge move above the cloud. And up into this prior resistance zone. You see this was a prior resistance zone over here and over here. That's exactly where we're at right now, where we closed. So I wouldn't be surprised to see some selling in the dollar, especially because in Ichimoku, if you do get this really big breakout over a cloud after being under a cloud for a long time, it's often that we get a little bit of pullback and maybe a retest of the cloud. That would be, if we did get a retest of the cloud, that would be meaning retracing basically this whole candle, because the cloud's all the way, down here at like 96.60 thereabouts. We do have a lower cloud going into the end of the year and a flat top of the cloud at 96.24. So that's not particularly bullish. If you wanted to be continually bullish on the US dollar here, you'd want to see a cloud that looked more like this, like a rising cloud, not a lower and flatter cloud. Because as we know, and as I've mentioned a few times, the flats attract. Also, another thing that's not entirely bullish, even though price is actually above the cloud right now, is that the Tenkan-sen and the Kijun-sen are still below the cloud. And the Tenkan-sen is going to have resistance at the cloud right around that same level that I was talking about, that 96.50 level. So that's not particularly bullish sign either. So I would expect a pullback on the dollar moving forward. I think that is likely, but we shall see, because technically, this is a really bullish candle, and if we do get a move higher, we have some sellers obviously in this area, in the 98.65 area, then obviously some sellers up here around 99.75 thereabouts. So some possible pause areas if we do just continue barreling ahead on the dollar, which I really don't expect. All right, I'm gonna wrap it up, and this video is getting a little long. I'm sure most of you have left by now. Thank you for watching. If you're interested in learning more about Ichimoku charting, you can hit me up on Twitter at CloudChartist. Follow me there. And I do have a chat room where I teach Ichimoku every day from about 8:30 to 4, 5, 6, 7, however late I hang around. There's a lot of really interesting people of all different levels of Ichimoku in there, sharing information. So it's a really nice learning environment. I'm really happy with the way the room is right now. People from all over the world, and there's no one is too much of a beginner to be in there. Although I really do prefer that people have some handle on basic trading knowledge and to be in there, because we do spend a lot of time just talking about basic risk management type stuff. It's nice if people have some prior experience, they can keep up a little bit better. I don't know where I'm going with this. Anyway, I better just kill that conversation. So thanks again for watching, and if you want to get more videos like this, do subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you thought this video was good, please give it a thumbs up, and if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Thanks again, and have a great trading week.